That's not LNS though, is it? It's not.
That is LNS, dude.
In conjunction with the release of the now famous Navy pilots' encounters with unidentified alien crafts,
Dude, that is a fucking drone, bro.
There's a whole fleet of them. Look on the ASA.
My gosh.
They're all going against the wind. The wind's 120 knots from the west.
The whole thing, dude.
Luis Elizondo, the former director of the Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program, ATIP, and producer of the series Unidentified, Inside America's UFO Investigation, has argued there is a strong connection between alien intelligences and nuclear facilities. Some of the strongest evidence for this proposed connection between the world's nuclear capability and aliens takes place around America's nuclear missile launch control air bases and their Minuteman missile silos.
In 2010, there was an outage, or the Air Force said it was like, a computer glitch where they didn't have control of the nuclear missiles. There's 50 missiles at 5 sites, and they didn't have control of those. Now, they reported that it was 59 minutes, but many of the staff members spoke out, the airmen, and said it was several hours on and off. And this happened in concurrence with UFO sightings above the missile bases. And so a lot of people question as to whether UFOs were the cause of the outage.
It happened at many of the launch control facilities where the missiles would go into some kind of a ready launch position where they were just, all of a sudden, everything's as it's supposed to be, and all of a sudden lights start going off and these missiles act as if they're going to launch themselves or they just go offline. So in essence, when we go out to investigate these, there were times when there were craft in the air. I know there was at Ellsworth, and I heard rumors at F.E. Warren and Minot, North Dakota also, and at Maelstrom of these objects that set this sequence of events off. And upon arrival of security response team personnel, they either left, hovered in the area, or did whatever they were going to do and just departed. And then the sequence or the normal operations of the facility was returned back to them.
At present, there are 400 Minuteman III nuclear warhead missiles ready for launch on the Great Plains. These underground silos are under control of 3 Air Force bases: Maelstrom Air Force Base in Montana, Minot Air Force Base in North Dakota, and F.E. Warren Air Force Base in Wyoming. Since the placement of these solid-state missiles in the 60s, there have been many reports of UAP sightings and alien contact experiences around the missile silos, as well as multiple episodes of loss of control of the missile launch capabilities. If it's alien, are they hostile? Hostile in preparation for an attack on the planet? Or are they friendly, practicing their capability to prevent a nuclear holocaust? A Minuteman wing consists of either 3 or 4 squadrons. Each squadron is comprised of 5 missile alert facilities. An unmanned missile alert facility directly controls the Minuteman missiles remotely from a 24/7 fully manned Minuteman Launch Control Center. The Minuteman LCC is an underground structure of reinforced concrete and steel of sufficient strength to withstand nuclear weapons attack. A missile launch facility, also known as an underground missile silo, is a vertical cylindrical structure constructed underground for the storage and launching of intercontinental ballistic missiles, ICBMs. Each launch facility is protected by an inner and outer security system. In addition, there is always a patrolling security force in the field. Here's a map showing the distribution of a typical network of Minuteman III silos. Mario Woods had his nuclear missile silo alien craft interaction at the now deactivated missile complex controlled by Ellsworth Air Base in South Dakota. At the time, Mario was an Air Force security policeman who, along with his partner, Michael Johnson, was tasked with securing a sector of our active nuclear missile silos. With his experience now declassified, he can openly tell the incredible story of what happened one evening. Happened at a missile silo codenamed November 5, but it all started at his launch control facility, November 1.
I was a security policeman. I was a senior airman at the time, and I was assigned at November 1 Launch Control Facility, just north of a small town called Newell, South Dakota, which is just above Sturgis. Many people can associate with Sturgis, but Newell's a smaller town, and it's just a little bit north on Highway 79. November 1 is about 9 miles north of Newell on Highway 79. And for my instance, at about 9:30 this one particular night, I'm going to call it November 18th. We really don't know the day, but I know the month and the year, of course, because it was right before Thanksgiving, and I was going to be off. But my partner, who was normally my partner, was on vacation, so there was a new guy that came out, and he outranked me, so he was my team leader. His name was Michael Johnson, and we were working the 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. shift, and we had eaten some dinner earlier. We have a site cook, and we eat really well out there. And there had been a blizzard late October, early November. There was one in late October, another one in early November. So the temperature was quite cold. It was between 9 and 12 degrees, I remember. Anyway, just about 9:30 at night, I walked outside. And, on these prairies, there's literally nothing. I think Belle-Fourche was another small town, was probably 40 miles north of our location. But, that ambient light it's so far and it's so flat out there that you really can't see that light on the horizon in any way. And it's about 9:30, 9:45 at night. I look over to my right as I walked out November 1 Launch Control Facility's door just to stretch my legs and breathe the fresh air, maybe have a smoke. I did that at that time. And I looked to the east, and there was a bright light. And it was a big bright light, not a normal helicopter or a B-52 bomber, which they flew sorties sometimes at night. I didn't really remember seeing helicopters fly sorties, but the bombers, they did B-52s, they did do that once in a while. And it'd be more than one, it'd be two of them flying low on the prairies, making like these fake runs. That's what they train for. And so I'm in my uniform, ready to work, from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. And I see this object, and I thought, well, that's weird. Because, you study the stars out there, because on a clear night, you feel as if you can reach up into the Milky Way and literally pull a star down. It's that clear. There's no ambient light. So I see this object, and I thought, well, what in the world is that? Because it seemed to just be glittering different colors, like a red, orange, and a white. But it was the size was different, and its intensity or luminosity was different than anything I'd ever seen. And my father was a merchant seaman with Texaco, a chief engineer. So when I was young, 11, 12, 13 years old, I used to go to sea with my father in the summer times. I'd sail with him, make money, and learn a great deal about real ships, But anyhow, so I got this idea. I thought, well, what is that? What kind of craft is that? I had no idea it was something else. So I walked back in the flight security controller's office, which is really the first, as soon as you walk in the door, it's directly on your right in a vestibule. It's the flight security controller's office. And a buddy of mine named Bill Holloman, he was on the phone with his wife back at Ellsworth or in Rapid City. And I said, Bill, I see something out here. We've worked together for a pretty good while. So I see something out here. I said, I'm not sure what it is. I think it's B-52 bombers. And he was talking. So I said, hey, I'm going to flip the lights at it, So on the facility, the perimeter of the security lights, and on the corners of the building, they're between 12 and 14, these big light cans, really large old light cans, but really bright. They lit up the entire perimeter on the whole site. There were security lights, security perimeter lights. So just for fun, one switch operated all of them. I just reached up and flipped the switch, bing, 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 bing. Walked back outside, looked, nothing happened. And all of a sudden it went out and went back on. And I just went, what just happened there, you know? So my partner, Michael Johnson, he was in the day room. So I asked him to come outside because this object was still there and it had lit back, the lights came back on. Or the light came back on. It's not lights, just a single light, but very bright and very different. And so I said, man, watch this thing. So I'm going to go in and flip the lights at it again, which I did. I went back inside and I flipped the switch, click, 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 click. And at the same time, I told Bill Holloman, I said, man, you got to come out here and see this thing. I said, I'm flipping the lights at this object. I thought it was B-52 bombers, but I'm not so sure now. And he just waved me off, you know, he just went like that. So he was a staff sergeant. He was a cool guy. So I went back outside and it had gone off. So I thought, well, I said, I guess the show's over. So in the next few minutes, couple of minutes, it popped back on, but it had moved north of where it was originally due east of me. So now it was to the north and to the east. And it was still at about 30 degrees. So its elevation hadn't changed to the best of my knowledge and to what I could witness. But anyway, so it stayed there for a few moments. I went back in and flipped the lights at it a couple of more times. He walked back inside and said, whatever. And I flipped the lights at it again and it went out and it didn't come back on. So that was really that 3 times is the amount of times that happened. So it was about 10:15 at that particular point. And I said, well, I guess it's, you know, it's over, whatever it was. And I walked back inside and I was going to watch some TV or read a book. So we had a nice day room at the launch control facility. And just that, watched some TV and maybe read some part of a book or something. And it was about 12:30. The MCC phone, the launch control facility phone in the flight security controller's office, which is a direct line from the officers downstairs to the flight security controller, it went off. And when it goes off, it makes a sound like, and you have to pick it up. It doesn't stop until you pick that phone up. It's one of those emergency answer me now signals. That's we always used to make fun of it. And so of course he picked the phone up and he said, Sergeant Holloman, I remember that. And I walked in to the front part of his office there. And he said, yes, sir, sit 4 at November 5. So at that particular time, when you're in that readiness stage, your weapons are in a small little armory right in the flight security controller's office. Your weapon and you have to get your USKAP code tables and your safety briefing from the capsule crew. So Michael Johnson got the safety briefing from the capsule crew, and of course it's your travel time. It's a sit 4, so it's handled differently than a sit 6, just the outer zone penetration of the antennas. It's different. It's more, you know, it's more serious. And so anyway, we got our weapons issued, get our stuff, get our ditty bags, which we carry our bags. Our vehicles parked directly outside the front door there of November Control, November 1. An F-150 pickup truck. And so in extremely cold, so you got your park on, you got your bunny boots on, you got your long handles on, everything, and get in our vehicle. And November 5 missile site is the closest launch facility, missile site, to November 1 control. Travel time's only about 18 minutes, I believe, 15 or 18 minutes. So we got our briefing, as I said, we got everything ready. We departed the site, went out the gate, went down to everything's clay roads out where I'm talking about. Went out the end of the access road to the first turn to the left, went to the next intersection, took a left, went up the highway 79. As the road goes, the highways are built up on like an apex, meaning that, snow and water and moisture rolls off of them in the wintertime for safer travel. So as we were approaching Highway 79 on the dirt road, and it's November 1 Missile Road today, I was just out there, the road kind of goes up like that toward the pavement, toward the highway, which is Highway 79. So as we were going up it, I'm in the passenger seat, and I just happened to look in about the 4 o'clock position behind me, and way over 6 or 7 miles away, you can see light in an area like that, 6 or 7 miles away, 5 to 6 miles away, let's say that. I see this glow emanating from the, from the surface or from the ground. And I thought, well, what is that? I've never seen that before. And it looked totally odd. And it's a long way away, so I really don't have an answer for it. I just asked the question. When we got up to 79 and we turned to the right, which takes us on South 79 to Newell, at that time, the population of Newell was 230 people. They had signs entering and exiting, 230 people. One stop sign and one stoplight, and that's it. That's all there is. The sidewalks roll up at 6 p.m. So as we get up onto 79, at about the 1 o'clock position now, now we're up on top of this hill heading down to Newell. Well, that missile site's sitting over about the 1 or 2 o'clock position. Now that glow is a whole lot brighter. And I said, Michael, that's that object over there, November 5. And he just looked at me and said, man, you're nuts. And I said, I'm telling you, dude, that's that same light. And now I'm just saying light because I didn't know it was an object. So we proceeded on, radio check, the whole 9 yards, all the way down to Newell. One radio check every, 10 or 12 minutes, supposed to do. But I don't even know if we did that. But anyway, so we get to the stop sign. And as you go down the downhill, as we're approaching the stop sign, I lost sight of the glow because now you're going from a plateau down to a lower ground. So I couldn't see it like I did before from being up. And so as we approached the stop sign, we turn right. And mind you, now it's about 5 till 1 in the morning. Turn right, and then the road goes out. It's called Orman Road. You can look at it on Google Earth, O-R-M-A-N. And it goes out about 1.5 miles, not 2 miles, about 1.5 miles, and it drops off the pavement back on the dirt road again, or clay roads. And they're state-operated roads, so they're extremely good condition. And then the road doglegs to the left, and there was like some small trees off to the left. And Ron, when we rounded that corner, after we dropped off that pavement, there was an object sitting on top of November 5 missile site that looked like, honestly, a Walmart supercenter in a sphere. And it was as bright as any sun that I've ever seen a picture of. Had no hard edges, had no leading edges, had no right angles of any kind. Whatever it was covered in this gaseous envelope that just seemed to rotate around it. I mean, really, it looked honestly like a miniature sun sitting there. And it was so bright to try and look at that it was very difficult to look straight at it. We never went to the site, but we went up to the cattle gate, which was the entrance road onto November 5. And November 5 sat about 15 yards, maybe 20 yards max past where the cattle gate was. And the only reason I reference the cattle gate is because the ranchers out there use these so cattle wouldn't come out into the roads. That was, the government leased the property to put these facilities on. So they put cattle gates so cattle wouldn't stroll out. We made it there and positioned the vehicle at a 45-degree angle. So I'm on the right side, he's on the left side. He'd be closer to it. And it was very difficult to even look at it. It was so bright. I mean, it was almost like light behind my eyeballs, like almost see through your hands, see through your eyelids, that kind of thing. And I asked Michael Johnson, I said, what is that? And he wouldn't answer me. He was just kind of frozen to the steering wheel looking straight ahead. He was just in I don't know. I've never seen anybody freeze up like that. But he just froze up and he didn't say a word. He didn't do anything. He just had his hands locked on that blue F-154 steering wheel. And those types of trucks that we use, those F-150s, they have these big Western mirrors on the side of them, on the doors. They were stainless or aluminum. And the only thing that I knew to do, I knew I wasn't getting out of that truck because my response position was I was supposed to go onto that site and not only go around the exterior perimeter of it, but the interior perimeter of the fence line, and then down in the soft support building and check underground where there was a generator room. But that particular alarm was called a SIT-4, so that outer zone penetration had been done, and there was an inner zone penetration that had activated. So that meant that it was a much more serious incident or alarm that we never really answered to. I didn't get out of the vehicle. He didn't get out of the vehicle. And the only thing I knew at that point was it seemed like time slowed down and the atmosphere in that truck was evacuated. It was taken away from us. It was as if I was pulled up in the back of that seat as he was, and I've got on a parka, you know, with the fur-lined hood on and everything, got my weapon between my legs, and I'm a pretty good-sized fella, and I was extremely athletic and very capable of many things. And the only way that I knew to get relief from whatever it was doing, because as the atmosphere was leaving that truck and the brightness and intensity of that light, I rolled that passenger side window down, and why, I don't know. But I reached up, and I didn't have a glove in this hand. I had a mitten on my left hand. And I pulled myself out onto the windowsill of that F-154 pickup truck using that mirror. And I had my mag light in my right hand, and I flashed this thing, whatever it is, with my flashlight. Same way I did at the facility light. And I didn't know what else to do. That's all I could do. I was asking for relief. I wanted to breathe. And I flashed my mag light, and the same way I flashed the facility lights at this thing. And I got a calming experience when I did that. And I slid back down in the seat, and I don't know where my mag light went, but I just dropped and I just slumped into my seat. I rolled the window back up. Why, I don't know. I don't know what else was said, but I do know I was in like some kind of tunnel vision. And in this tunnel vision, I heard these voices, not verbally like we're talking right now. I heard these voices inside of me, like speaking through water, which it bothers me today, but I turned my head to my right, and I had on my beret. I remember that, I had on my beret. And when I turned my head to the right, I was looking like through tunnel vision because the light intensity had seemed to go down. The atmosphere returned to the truck somewhat, but not 100%. I see these beings that are next, maybe 10 feet from my truck approaching us. And I've got some drawings of them. And there's two smaller beings in front of the one that's taller behind it. The two smaller guys are about 3, maybe 4 feet. And they were of teal color with large eyes, just as they normally say. I'd never seen them before, but I did that time. But the one behind him, he was between 5 and 6 feet. And he was a lot more menacing. And I was afraid of that. And I don't know why I wasn't afraid of the first two. And I don't know where they came. I don't know how close they came to me. But once I saw that vision, I looked straight ahead and I was afraid. I had my window up and I knew they were standing right beside that vehicle. It seemed to have blacked out. And then I remember picking up my head. Don't know what happened to Michael Johnson. I don't know if there were any beings on the other side of that vehicle or not. And I remember lifting up my head and I saw the side of my security police vehicle. It said U.S. Air Force on the side of it in gold letters. And the door was closed. So somehow or another, I'm on my back and I'm 3 or 4 feet off the ground. And I don't remember having my weapon at that point. And then I blacked out. From that point, I remember gel, some kind of a strange gel that I'm in, and it's a sense of dread that it's very a fear and dread. I didn't know if I could ever get out of the hole that I was in. Is the way I felt, and I didn't even know what it was. I mean, you can get lost in a cave, you can climb in a tree, you can do many things. So, but in that situation, I don't have words for it. I know that I was wet in something as a gel, and it was all over me. I don't know if I was clothed or not. The dread that I felt is just, I have dreams about it today. And for 43 years, this has haunted me. The other thing is I had a great deal of pain in my right wrist. I remember something being done to my wrist. And And I kept asking it to stop. They're just, because you're hurting me. And I remember a hand being placed on my shoulder from above. And I remember shadows in front of me, very close, as if I'm laying down, but I wasn't in that jail any longer. And then, as if everything just goes black for so long, and all of a sudden I open my eyes, literally just like that, open my eyes, and I'm sitting in the truck, in the F-154 pickup truck, and it's totally black. Michael Johnson sitting there, he's fully clothed, and he's holding the steering wheel. I don't know how much time had passed. I don't know anything. Like, what happened with all that? What happened with all that? What just transpired? And I looked to my right of that F-154 pickup truck, and the window's up, and there's a great big white wall about 4 feet away from me. A white wall in the middle of, I'm in South Dakota. Where is there a white wall anywhere? So I reached down and I popped the door open. Now, mind you, the temperature is between 9 and 12, maybe 15 degrees, and it had been that cold for a period of time, so the ground was frozen. I stepped out in mud, and I said, Michael, no answer. And all of a sudden, the radio cracked to life. Like the first time I'd ever heard it, really, since the time we left the November 1 control. And said, Wing Security Control to November 1. Do you copy? Wing Security Control November 1. And I said, Michael, you going to get that? He never moved. He never spoke. I reached over and grabbed the radio. And I said, November 1, go ahead, WSC. He said, what's your location? And I said, this is Senior Airman Woods. I said, I don't know where we are, sir. Now they're back at Ellsworth Air Force Base. And I didn't know this at the time. And he asked me where we were. He said, I need you to keep speaking to me with minute radio checks. We're trying to triangulate your position. And I thought to myself, well, what happened November 5? And he said, I need you to keep talking, please. He said, we have some people looking for you. That had never happened at all to me, ever. So I had no explanation for it. And so next thing I know, it starts to get light. And I look to the east and I see these headlights coming. And I thought, well, where are we? Still, the whole time I'm trying to get Michael Johnson to say something, but he wouldn't speak. He was as if he couldn't, or he was comatose. I don't know. His eyes were open. He was breathing. But that white wall was a snow-covered backside of the Newell Lake Reservoir Dam. And down at the very center of it, where we were, it's about 40 to 50 feet high, looking up at it, but on an angle at about, I don't know, 45 degrees, I would say. And it extends for probably, honestly, over 100 yards. Now, in the very center of it, where we were, it's at the very lowest depth of what the dam would be, and then it gets shallower or less height as you go toward the ends of it to get out. But one end was the sluice drain, where they open it up and allow water to come out of it. So you couldn't go that way in a vehicle. Our vehicle was facing south, which is the only way it could face, as we had a two-wheel drive vehicle, and there was not but 5, maybe 7 feet of earth that vehicle could have been sitting on, or we'd have been down about 30 to 40 feet down on another lake that was to our left, on the side that Michael Johnson was on. That was the drain pond from the normal dam. I guess when they opened that sluice and filled this lower lake up, I don't know, but it was frozen. Now, if we'd have gone down, if we'd have driven in there, we had nowhere to turn around, and you certainly couldn't back up. And I don't remember driving there, and I did drive out of there. 4 alert teams were looking for us. That's 8 security policemen, including the flight chief and assistant flight chief of our shift, which they ended up meeting us at November 1. When the first backup alert team met us, I think it was a Sergeant Garza. And as I came around to meet him, he said, Mario, stay right there. He said, don't move. He said, I need you to, he said, just stay where you are. I said, man, do you know what happened? He goes, no, we can't talk to you about it. He said, we're just going to escort you back to November 1. I said, well, I got problems with Michael. I said, he's not speaking, and nobody knew him because he came from another area at another shift. He was working really a vacation relief. That's why I didn't know him. Never worked with him before. So he helped me come over to the vehicle and unbelted him because we didn't have shoulder belts then. We just had waist belts. And, at this particular time in 77, I guess the later years they had them. But anyway, so I unbuckled him and reached over, and he wasn't maybe 150 pounds, and slid him over into the passenger seat and buckled him in. And they all led us out we went to November 1, which from November 5 to November 1 is about 9.5 miles, something like that. From November 5 to Newell Lake's about 9.5 miles. So we went back to November 1, where everybody was waiting on us. They escorted us there, and of course met with the flight chief and the assistant flight chief. And I told them the status of Michael Johnson. They took him to the day room. They tried to get some fluids in him, tried to get him settled down. My face was burned on the right side of my face. The back of my hand was burned, and I couldn't really explain that other than the intensity of that light when we first pulled up on it. I don't know if Michael Johnson's left side of his face was burned because he was sitting on that side of the vehicle. But excuse me, this it kind of gets me every time I talk about this. I guess we debriefed for about 2.5, maybe 3 hours, and I don't know if they got Michael Johnson to talk because they kept us separate. Matter of fact, I went into the restroom just to relieve myself, and as I was in there, I just went and sat on the toilet. I mean, I didn't have to use the restroom. I just went and sat on the toilet, and all of a sudden I got this feeling I was leaving my body. I mean, I really honestly felt, I didn't know if I was going to die or what was happening to me, but I've never felt that strange in my life. I felt honestly as if I was just being pulled I was leaving me, and I could go up and look down and go up, look down and come back to myself. I can't explain that. But that's just what happened. And the next thing I know, I see another security policeman. He's in the restroom, and I see 4 legs of a German Shepherd. They had sent a drug dog out to the facility to make sure there was no drugs or anything like that, which of course there weren't. And so I went back into the day room, and I told them I had to lay down for a minute, and they were still trying to talk to Michael Johnson. They had him separate, and I think they took him into the facility manager's room, and they were talking to him there or trying to console him in some way. I really don't know because they separated us at that point. Then I went with my flight chief back to Ellsworth, and he questioned me the entire way. But before we left, they had to have another team take our place. They couldn't be short 2 men, so they had to have a backup alert team until 2 more guys were sent from Ellsworth to restaff our positions. So Michael Johnson went with the assistant flight chief. I went with the flight chief. We went back to base, and we went to Colonel Spraker's office. He was a security police wing commander, and we went to his office. And when we got there, there were 3 or 4 others. It was a total of 5 people that I remember. And one man was in a hat, just like a Dick Tracy hat. I'll never forget that, in a suit. So I don't know where he came from. But there was a guy named Richard Doty there from OSI, and he was real young. I remember him. And another guy from OSI that outranked him. Doty was just a young guy. I don't think he had been in very long at the time. But anyway, he was there, and so Colonel Spraker, asked all kind of questions. I think the base commander got involved in it. He came, and there was 5 or 6 people in that room, and I was taken to another room once the debriefing was complete, and I told them the same thing that I've just told you. And I was, of course, told I couldn't speak about it to anybody, and I would not be going back to November Control. I would be sent to the alternate command post, which was Kilo Control, which was November was part of, but it was further north and outside of north of Sturgis by Spearfish. And I wasn't told that then. I found that out when I came back when our ship rotated again. So he said that my commander told me, he said, well, we're Oh, I had to do my report first, which ended up being, it's a 3-page thick kind of blotter of an incident. I don't remember the name or the form number of reporting a phenomenon like that, or a UFO, or however they had it done. But the word UFO was on that form, and I thought it was a 1000, but it's not. And Robert Hastings straightened me out on that. We got to the real matter on that. But anyway, you know, they give you a number 2 Skillcraft pen, and I won't forget it because I print very well, always have. I'm left-handed, and I remember having to press so hard that I was literally sweating trying to write this thing, thinking about where my position and where I was and what had happened as I'm writing this report out, which ended up being 3 pages, but it's 3 pages thick also, that you have to press really hard to get all 3 copies to transfer, you know, carbon like that, you know. And it was real upsetting. I was married at the time, and of course, in non-disclosure, you can't discuss any of this, and I didn't know if I wanted to discuss any of it with my wife. I mean, first of all, you know, I worked 3 days at a time in the missile field, come in the morning of the 4th, we were newlyweds, but, you know, married in Florida, but, you know, I really couldn't talk about it, and I didn't want her to think I was some idiot or, you know, nuts for what I'd just seen and have happened. So from there, they took me to the flight surgeon's office, which, I don't remember his name, and he wasn't a normal flight surgeon, I later learned. And of course, he did the ears, eyes, nose, throat. He even examined me elsewhere, but he was real concerned about the burns on my face, and I had burns on the back of my hand, and he wanted to take skin samples. He didn't give me any shots or anything like that. I don't remember, they didn't take my blood. But he did take skin samples, one from above my left eye, right eye, and then the back side of my right hand in 2 places. And I guess it was, you know, mind you, I got there on the base probably during the whole start of this thing, probably 10:20 that morning, 10:30. And I wasn't able to leave until after 3:30 or so that evening, when I was able to call my wife to come get me. And she didn't understand what, you know, I'd only been out 1 day and then come back in, you know, like that, and then rotated, you know, the next cycle. So it gave me a week off, which I wasn't normally used to having, but I really couldn't talk to her about it, you know. And so it kind of bothered me that I didn't get any kind of receipts or anything, you know, as far as the medical test that transpired later in life when I got out in '83 before I went to work for DOE. But a little over 14 months later, or well, it was less than that, about 9 months later, Linda Moulton Howe was in the missile field, and she was investigating cattle mutilations, of which several of us saw some of those. And there were other objects that I saw during that period of time, and never alone. But the National Enquirer was in the missile fields looking from not only at Ellsworth, but at Minot, F.E. Warren, Maelstrom also, from sightings and people this has been happening to. I wasn't the only instance of this happened to. Believe me, there are many more, and a lot of them removed from their vehicles, weapons strewn about, no clothes on them, down in the Badlands and other places.
Indeed, more ex-servicemen and women, once sworn to secrecy, are coming forward with their alien contact experiences in our nuclear missile fields. Robert Hastings, author of the book UFOs and Nukes, has received over 150 such accounts. In addition, multiple civilian UAP reports are emerging from the same nuclear missile fields. The questions are, what is the government hiding? And what does it all mean for the future of humanity?
Hi, I'm Bill Ambrose. If you like this video, subscribe so we can bring you more programming from our studio. Thank you for subscribing.